Hey everybody, you got Marcel here. Great to be back. I made a video yesterday. It started out as dating foreign thoughts, what you should know first, or something equivalent to that. It was demonetized and throttled back, and I went ahead and pulled some of the tags off of it that said anything about foreigners or that sort of speak, and put it back with just sort of generic tags, as well as changing the title to "Should I Travel to Meet Her?" It was then monetized, left it there for a little while, and switched it back over to the original title, and it went back to demonetized. I changed it back a third time to the "Should I Travel to Meet Her?" and it went monetized again. So pretty much officially we're not allowed to label videos in anything involving either foreigners or thoughts. I don't know what part it was, but I learned something with that. I'm not allowed to talk about dating foreigners. Unless, of course, the algorithm gods have learned what thoughts are. I guess that's possible. Anyways, hopefully you guys didn't get spammed by too many of the same video yesterday. This morning, I'm going to be discussing the importance and effects of novelty in relationships, and whereas the effect it can have on both genders differently. Have you ever had a woman say to you that you're boring? Or that you got boring after the relationship had an opportunity to settle? Initially, everything is fantastic when a relationship starts, or really good at least, and over time it gradually tapers off, and there comes a point where there isn't as much interest. She gets distracted, starts going out more with friends. Before you know it, you're bickering about things. She's off and spends little time at home, and then finally it verges on fights and arguments, and eventually leads to the destruction of the relationship. I'm sure most everybody's gone through that at some point. See, I believe people have different motives and end goals within their relationships. And for the average person, depending on gender, you can usually separate it into two categories. See, there's the side that's focused primarily on romance, which for men, that would be the committed female that's going to be there with him, support him in emotional ways. In essence, he's looking at having a wife, having someone that's going to stay there and be dedicated with him. For women, that could be a guy that's going to stick around and support her financially, take care of her emotionally, soak up some of that emotional drama she has to dump off from time to time. Essentially the role that a beta male would probably fill. Then you have the other category of men and women, which are pretty much thrill seekers. They might be out there looking to get laid. They might be out there looking for a good time. In the case of men, you've got your pickup artists, your guys that are hooking up with women at bars, trying to have a good time. But there's not really any intent to stay with the woman after the fact. In the case of women, it's going to be the ones that are riding the carousel, They're out there chasing the alphas, the chads, the ones that are going to give them the greatest thrills and the excitement of a new, fresh experience. I think that everybody enters a relationship with at least some level of intent behind it for an end goal in sight. Though it is entirely possible that that could change over time, I would say that it tends to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. If someone enters a relationship with the intent of it not lasting very long, it probably is not going to. Almost the concept of it was fun while it lasted, and it lasted while it was fun. So having established that both men and women exhibit these behaviors, I've been considering how many of my past relationships actually played out where they ended just because I got boring. Not because of lack of effort, and certainly not because I changed as a male, but more likely because I didn't change enough. I wasn't able to keep her intrigued. The freshness and newness of the relationship wore off. I believe that people are chasing the high, that thrill of a first kiss, and the experience of going out on a first date, the excitement of hoping that they will reach down and hold their hand for the very first time. And just like anything else, after weeks, months, or even years of holding that same person's hand, they lose interest in it, and it becomes almost a chore. The infamous boredom that creeps into the not-so-everlasting relationships. Now, why am I bringing all of this up? How does it relate to MGTOW? First of all, I'm going to point out why these kind of behavioral patterns are dangerous to men and can actually drive them to make poor decisions. I'm going to pull apart why they destroy relationships in the long run, and I'm going to point out why for women it is often an unwinnable challenge that will ultimately lead to the relationship's demise, regardless of whatever the man tries to do. Keep in mind, as I said in the beginning, that people's intent upon entering the relationship can be different, and that may affect whether or not they will ever go through this, but it can change back and forth. So a person who's wanting romance can still get bored, and a person who is looking for a good time could, quote-unquote, fall in love and decide to try and make it something longer lasting. So speaking from my perspective, back when I was dating, I went through phases where I would be interested in speaking to a lot of different women. I would go interact with them. Sometimes I would wind up dating them, sometimes I would not, but I was meeting lots of people. There was a time frame when I was going out and flirting and hooking up and going through the motions of sort of establishing a relationship that could potentially last long term, but right about the time that it was established and I'd accomplished that, I lost interest. And I started already moving on to the next person that piqued my interest. Now, certainly that wasn't very appreciated by the women I was dealing with, but let's be honest here, they do that to men all of the time. Turnabout's fair play, right? The thing was, looking back on it, I was interested in the nervous, excited feeling of that first kiss, in myself. I was striving for the challenge, the chase, the intellectual pursuit, convincing this woman that I met that it's a good idea to be in a romantic relationship with me. At some point, I simply lost interest. It's not due to any lack of endearment or appreciation for who they were. The thrill just wore off. Not to mention, there's a point in the relationship where there's a switchover, where the guy is no longer expected to just be around and as a boyfriend, and he becomes something of a provider / hey, you need to come fix my plumbing kind of boyfriend. I mean, one minute you're having a romantic trek through the park and just enjoying each other's company, and the next minute you're getting yelled at that some bill's not paid. How in the hell does that happen? Is it any surprise that I found that extremely boring? So why are these kind of behaviors dangerous when it comes to men and their experiences with women? Well, to be frank, it's quite possible that the guy doesn't actually want to be with the woman. Not that being with any of them is a good idea in the first place, but the act of engaging with them on that deep of an emotional level, especially nowadays, is an unnecessary risk. There are far better outlets to find excitement and thrill and even a challenge than to deal with women and dating. Though now that I've pointed out these behaviors in men, and everybody's probably just nodding their head like, yeah, there are guys that are players, people do that. Now I'm going to point out my views on the female gender, and people are going to go like, no, Marcel, you can't talk like that. Those are women. You're not allowed to speak about them, despite it being the exact same behaviors. You see, I believe that the average woman is actually striving to have both. She wants the thrill, the fresh excitement, the experience of an alpha or a Chad, as well as the security and the comfort and the financial stability of a beta or a cuck. To feel as if she's getting everything she deserves, she's got to balance both of them. And it is virtually impossible for a man to actually fill both of those roles at the same time. Dedicated, stable, consistent guys are simply boring. And even if you would argue that they can still bring excitement and interest into the relationship, even that becomes repetitive because it's coming from their perspective. Eventually they're going to want something fresh and new. The male equivalent of this would be like the 7-year itch, so I'm pointing out both sides to it. At some point, inevitably, the woman is going to start chasing after something more exciting. Conversely, or on the other side of this, if the guy is filling the exciting, interesting, kind of a spur-of-the-moment role, then the relationship is almost guaranteed to be doomed from the start, and is never going to have any sustainability because she's kind of on her own. He's just there for the excitement, and that's going to be really short-lived. It's only going to stay interesting for so long. Even if he's willing to change himself, which, by the way, kind of makes him look like a cuck anyway, but even if he is willing to change himself to suit new, fresh things to put to her needs, eventually she's going to land on something that she doesn't like in him, and that's going to be her excuse to leave anyway. She doesn't want a new personality or a new version of the same old boyfriend. She wants a different boyfriend who acts the new way. And even if she's in a position, in this society at least, where she can't leave the guy that she's with for whatever reason, eventually she's going to find a way to get that excitement around his back. because culturally there's no incentive for her not to. I mean, for men there is. You guys get crucified if you cheat and you get caught, especially if there's marriage or children involved, but the women can do whatever they want. Geez, I mean, if I could go back to my younger years with the knowledge I have today to recognize what type of relationship I was getting in when I got in it, you know how much pain it would have saved me? So many expectations that would have never shattered. A big part of that understanding, though, may have come from me sitting down and really just kind of analyzing myself as to why I was dating the woman in the first place. Is she someone different? Am I just attracted to her physically? Do I have intentions of making it a long-term relationship? What are my end goals? Of course, nobody really sits and processes those things, especially not in youth. They just want to tackle the first person that shows interest in them that's halfway decent looking. Nonetheless, the same behavioral patterns that were in me in my youth are still present, at least in my mind frame today, on a subconscious level. They still exist. Even now today, I'm still looking for something new, something exciting, and those behaviors can cause me to impulsively make decisions that I wouldn't have otherwise. A job I might not want to take except for the pretty women that work there. A conversation that makes me late for class. The human mind has the remarkable ability to acquiesce to almost any situation, to adapt to whatever a person is going through. It has the remarkable ability of allowing a person under duress or in a very uncomfortable environment to become comfortable, to get complacent, to find a level of sanity in some abstract reality that they otherwise would be very uncomfortable in. But that same adaptability allows them to also stop enjoying things that would have originally brought them even extreme levels of happiness. Think of your favorite song and how many times you heard it on the radio until you absolutely hated it. See, the truth is that no song sounds amazing forever. The more you hear it, eventually it's gonna suck. But it sure doesn't feel that way when you're jamming out to it driving down the highway. Relationships are the same way, and women see men as a good song on the radio when they're with them. Now, I suppose it's possible for a man to enter a modern relationship and still be happy when she starts nagging him about stuff and all the problems happen and she's cheating on him. He may still be happy, but more likely, he just adapts to it slowly over time. Meanwhile, society keeps him in line. Furthermore, it's possible that a woman could be content with a boring boyfriend that's steady and dependable, or a boyfriend that mostly appealed for his interesting, exciting nature, but then accepts it when he loses all of that after a little short period of time. For some reason, proceeds to never seek out another guy in the same exciting way again. But I seriously doubt it. As a summary of all of this, since a guy can't both be an alpha and a beta effectively and fill both of those roles in the woman's life, there is absolutely no point in trying. Given the context of the way women treat even the alphas, I wouldn't want to be either one. So as they say, just go MGTOW. Anyway, I hope that was interesting. If you guys enjoy my discussions, like, subscribe, maybe share. I have links to my other channels down below. Until next time, this has been Marcel.